we're going to get started. All right, glad you guys could make it. So see some new faces, see some familiar faces. So I anticipate we'll have some people still trickling out throughout the night. So normally when we do these, we have a general like structure of how the night comes out. Tonight's going to be just a little bit different, and I'll explain how it's going to adjust here and there. But I kind of want to start off, first of all, I just want to welcome everyone to Northshore Real Estate Investors Association. So this is a meeting that happens once a month, and our goal is that I truly believe that a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if we can all improve as investors, whether that's a flipper, a wholesaler, a landlord, a developer, maybe that's a real estate professional of some sort. If we can all improve it to the community, right? And so with that, this is a place for us to not only get to know the people to the left and to the right of us, but also to learn things, right? At least that's the hope. And anyway, every month varies as far as sometimes it's more in-house interactive. Sometimes I've got speakers who come in. It just really does vary. So these events, again, they're once a month. They're free. They're open to the public. And it's actually thanks to some local sponsors that we have. So our two main sponsors are Florida League Title Company. It's a regional title company. They have, I believe, 9 offices throughout the region. Makes it really helpful when I have a seller who's in, like, it feels like Timbuktu, but it's just the West Bank. And then I've got a buyer over here or whatever, and all these things, and we can coordinate it through the different offices. It actually helps a lot. Especially when I buy throughout that region, I can, hey, let me go to this office, hey, let me go to this office, type of thing. The other one is Mr. Bob Norton. He's a real estate tax professional and accountant. A lot of you guys, we've learned from him, but a lot of us are using him as we're sweating through the final hours of some deadlines, right? I'm like, what is this weekend going to sound like? It's going to sound like me scratching my fingernails on some chalkboard. No, that's what it feels like sometimes. But we've also got some preferred vendors. If you're looking for someone, that's kind of been my heart around the preferred vendors is so many times people are like, hey, do you know a good property manager? Hey, do you know a good, XYZ, fill it in the blank. And that's kind of the heart behind the preferred vendors is saying, hey, I know so many people are just trying to find good people to do good business with. So the business cards that are on the table are not the exhaustive list. You can see there's a sign on the table that you can actually go online to see more. Apparently business cards are in short supply. So I'm like, hey, send me an entire box next time. Anyway, so you can see that there's some other tables out there. For example, my company has a table out there, so if some of you guys are like, hey, can I get your card or something like that? I almost never have one on me, but I can say for sure there's one out there. So a few things, housekeeping things. We've got the bathrooms over here. We've got some water here. And this is probably the first time I have the announcements actually being recorded. So the recording is, because these events are free and they're open to the public, we record them and put them on our YouTube channel so that you're like, hey, Courtney, I missed one, or man, I heard that there was this one speaker that spoke on this one topic that I really wanted to hear, but I missed it. It's a great opportunity to go back and watch them on our YouTube channel. And so next month, on July 13th, can someone confirm that that's that Tuesday? Because I wrote that down from memory because I got my phone going. July 13th, can you confirm that that's a Tuesday?
Yep.
Okay, so that's the next time that we're meeting in here. So July 13th, that's next month, and we're going to be talking about mastering your next property walkthrough. I know that so many investors struggle with a walkthrough of like, maybe estimating repair costs, maybe, okay, what do I need to look at? And I can tell you that so many times when people get, tripped up on that, they miss out on opportunities because that kind of becomes this major ordeal. So I invited Paula Green. She is a very highly respected contractor, building science expert. He's been a contractor for over 30 years. So he'll be speaking next month, so July 13th, here from 6:30 to 8:30. And so, again, he's just really going to be going over how you can master your next walkthrough. And I know that, because I know that's something that people have asked me to have someone speak on for a while now, because it's one of those things, right? It's intimidating. Sometimes you're like, I can't look past the cockroaches. What should I go look for? Or you're like, hey, you know what? I got really burned because I bought a house and I missed X, Y, Z, even though I had a home inspection, or things like that. So, let's see. For those of you who have not had the privilege of meeting, my name's Courtney Fricky. I put these meetings on every month. I'm also, so I'm from here. I'm an active investor. And so one of the biggest things I would say, if you've got deals to sell, which I'm going to give you an opportunity if you either have an on-market or an off-market deal, we're actively buying right now. My company, the majority of it that we do is we are doing more buy and hold this year than we are doing flipping or wholesaling. Every now and then we'll wholesale another property. It just kind of depends on our criteria. But we're aggressively buying. I'll tell you this right now, we're aggressively buying hotels. So we're buying a 45-unit hotel, and we are on the tail end of a 112-unit hotel that we're hoping to be able to buy. And so that is a new asset class for me. So that is something that, if any of you come across anything like that, we are actively looking. The other thing we're looking for is mobile home parks. We just bought a 30-unit, and we're in negotiations for a 500-plus unit one. So if you come across one of those, I'm willing to travel for the larger ones. So just kind of keep me in mind for that. So with that being said, one of the biggest things is my goal here is just to be a resource for y'all, whether that is facilitating group meetings like this, facilitating the speakers coming in, facilitating, maybe you're part of some of our Facebook groups that we have that are throughout the state so that you can network with other people, or maybe you join on Clubhouse when we have the meeting on every Monday morning on Clubhouse. My goal is to kind of facilitate, again, education in multiple platforms. So with that being said, during these meetings, one of the best things you can do is share a deal if you have one. And most people right now who are trying to buy deals are struggling to find one. Any buyers in here been struggling a little bit lately? Yeah, let me hear your frustrations, right? So with that being said, these can be some of the great opportunities where you can access people who have access to those deals. I will say this, there's a lot of people who are considering sitting on the sideline because they're unsure what the market's doing. I'll say this, I've bought some of the best deals of my career during the pandemic and during 2021. So with that being said, yes, deals are not as plentiful, but they're still out there, in my opinion. So, one of the things is, if you're a buyer, I want to introduce you to some people in the room who have access to deals. So, one of the first sets of people that I want to introduce you to are who most people think of, which is realtors. So, if they have access to those on-market properties or the ones that are soon to come to market. So if you're a realtor and cash buyers or buyers, pay attention here. If you're a realtor and you have access to deals and you want to make connections tonight, can you just stand up real quick? All right. All right, so these are the people that you'd want to, reach out to. Thank you. All right, so these are some of the people that, hey, you may want to say, hey, do you have a business card? Hey, do you, can we meet for coffee? Can we talk afterwards? So for those of you who are licensed, do you have any on-market deals you want to share tonight? Okay.
Sure. I have a 12,000 square foot restaurant in Old Town Slidell. It's a restaurant / event venue. It could be converted into like a boutique motel if you would be creative enough, or it could be really anything. It does have a full-fledged commercial kitchen in it. It's really big. Just get creative with it. It is listed for $1.2 million, and it is on the market. So if anyone's interested, or if you know anyone who's interested, let me know.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. Anyone else have anything on market? Off market, I'm gonna come to you next. Anyone else on market?
I have a couple things on market, but nothing like screening deal investment wise.
Okay. I'll say this. 2 of our deals that we're working on right now are on market. So, and look, I'm happy about them, right? Like, they're deals. And so it's not that they don't, just because it's on market doesn't mean it's not a deal. I want to emphasize that. Okay, So then the next one is off-market. Most people, off-market deals are gonna come from, either someone who knows somebody. For example, hey, my mom has, some rentals that she wants to sell. Not my mom, literally, but, for example, right? Or you've got what we call wholesalers, people who, what they do is that they market direct to sellers for these off-market properties, and when they get them under contract, they then sell their position in the contract to someone else. And so in essence, you can get access to deals that are not on market to where everyone sees them. So it's the people who see them are as many people who know about the deal, right? So wholesalers, the mobile home park we just bought, we bought it from a wholesaler. I'm trying to think if we bought any other deals recently from wholesalers, but I'm always looking for them. Actually, yes, because we just went out to dinner. We were doing this thing where we did a 2-hour mastermind for people who brought us deals. So we did just buy some other ones. It's been a long day. So with that being said, if you're a buyer, I almost wreck my truck trying to turn around if I see a We Buy Houses sign, because I want to call them and say, hey, please add me to your buyers list. Is there anything that you have available? Hey, is there anything that you have coming up? This is my buying criteria. This is what I'm looking for. And then sometimes I do that, and they're like, Courtney, you just called me 10 minutes ago from the other side. I said, oh, my bad. So I truly am, because I'm trying to hunt down deals, right? And I know that they have access to them fairly. So if you are a wholesaler, go ahead and stand up so that people can know who you are, so you can get added to your buyers list. All right, good stuff. You guys can sit down. So buyers, again, you want to be paying attention. Any of you guys have any available deals right now? Sharon, you go ahead. Ladies first.
I have a double wide mobile home that needs to be moved that we have available right now. It needs some cosmetic work. It's a 1995, so just kind of take note of that depending on where you can even put it in what parish. And that one is I think that one's at 16,000.
Okay. Anything else? Excellent. Justin?
I have some lots in the lower ninth ward. We got about 6 or 7 lots over there. We're selling with seller financing, so
Okay.
It's gonna be like $1,000 down, $200-300 a month. We can be flexible on the terms, and we're really kind of focusing on seller financing on those. So it's not
That's your
really a
preference to
wholesale
sell.
deal, but they are off market, and we do have some property coming up on Old Gentilly Road. It's gonna be commercial in New Orleans East, about 1.3 acres. Probably gonna put that out for 60 or 70,000, set to 110, I think. And
So you've got some equity in that piece there.
yeah.
And it's zoned commercial?
Yeah, it used to be. I'm not gonna go into the details right now because we're in the process of
Sure.
getting that locked in. But it is. You could do like probably a motel or commercial or something like that. You'd have to build, obviously.
Sure. Okay. For those of you who don't know Justin, he primarily deals in land. Every now and then he hates himself for dealing in houses. No, I'm just kidding.
I got some bad experiences with houses, but there is one house I do. A friend of mine actually has contracted, and it's in the lower ninth. So if anybody's interested over there, she did give me permission to look for a buyer, but it's on the Royal Street, I think. Anyway, they're asking like 120. I'm not sure if that's like I think it's got some equity. I think maybe worth 130, 140. But in this market, I just want to throw it out there just in case somebody's.
So lower ninth, if you're interested, get with Justin. Anyone else have any deals that they want to talk about? Okay. Yeah, we're fresh out. Like I said, we're not wholesaling as much. You're always welcome to join our buyers list, but again, we went from 60% of our business was wholesaling to like 20% of our business is wholesaling now. So, because we're again aggressively buying. So, all right, excellent. So that can kind of give you an idea of who's in the room. Now, instead of normally right now is when we would break into some networking, but I want to jump into tonight's topic, and then I want to save the networking for the end. So that's where I'm going to kind of get it a little bit different. So let's go ahead. I didn't have them set the room up at tables, but let's go ahead and get into some circles. Let's do it in groups of say 5 or 6. I think I think if we did like 6, we could do like 3 circles. So if you guys want to go ahead and just turn it sideways, we're going to kind of get into some groups here. So tonight's conversation, I'm going to kind of adjust some things, I'm going to talk about some things, and then I'm going to have y'all discuss.
You Greg? Gavin? David? Marcus? Great.
All right, so let's go ahead. I want to go ahead and get you guys started by doing one thing first. So tonight's topic is we're going to talk about treating real estate as a business. So with that being said, and if some of you want to adjust, because I'll be speaking from up here and then I'm going to release you to talk in your groups, right? My goal here tonight is for you to have really interactive conversations with the people in your group so that not only are you learning from what's being shared up here, but you're learning from the people who are next to you, okay? So I have this theory. I have a theory that, so historically, the 2 ways people have built wealth have been through owning businesses, right, and owning real estate. Anyone heard that before? I think it's like 90% of millionaires are made that way through owning real estate, and those are 2 major contributing factors. Tell me this, how many of you guys have ever met a seller who sold a property, a piece of real estate that they owned, but they were not wealthy? Right? A good bit of them. Does that kind of feel like contradictory? So here's my theory. Owning real estate is not enough to get to those wealth metrics that we're looking for. So hey, you find a rental property, you buy it, and then the next day you're not like, you don't wake up in your bed and be like, this is what being a millionaire feels like. Right? It's exciting, but it's not the only part to the equation. So, especially whenever, so I frequently buy from sellers who want to exit the business one way or another. Maybe they didn't pay their mortgage, so therefore they're facing foreclosure. Same thing with their property taxes, or maybe it's a liquidation after a divorce, or they inherited some properties and they're like, yeah, I do not want to have to deal with that, or maybe it's a commercial property and they're just like, I don't know, the animals are running the show, whatever you want to call it, right? So whatever that looks like, there's a lot that I've had as a case study to be able to kind of figure out how do you own this real estate and build wealth. And a huge part that I have found is that those 2 key factors, owning real estate and owning businesses, I find that people's children's children will know their name when they treat the real estate that they own as a business. Meaning, they're not best friends with their tenant and like every month being like, yeah, maybe you can pay me later. Like, no, they have some repeatable processes. They have some things that they build into place that they're saying, hey, this is, for me, a business. Similar to if you walked into a restaurant that was a well-run business. You're like, hey, I can take some parallels here. And I find that because real estate can be a very one-off transaction. You do one transaction here, you might do another, unless you're doing some high volume, but let's face it, most people in this room are not at that level. It can be very one-off, and so it's hard to build some rhythm of a business into that. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So there's a few things I want to kind of preface this with. So I want to go ahead and have you say your name, say where you're from, and just say either, hey, I'm looking to do my first deal, or I've done a few deals, I have some rentals, I'm a flipper. Kind of just explain briefly your level in real estate investing. So let's go ahead and do that. Your name, where you're from, and are you from here, are you from the coast, are you from Baton Rouge, are you from the South Shore, people travel. So go around and share that, and then share briefly your experience thus far in real estate in the industry, but just within your group, okay? Oh, that's no problem.
We all came together.
Hey, look, hold on. I'll do this really quick. Some people want to change groups because they're like, I came with these folks. I know. So let's go ahead. Instead of 4, let's just go into 3, and you guys just join the other groups, okay? Hey guys, so this is where it's going to be a little bit difficult. So we've got 3 groups here. I know that we are filming tonight, but there's going to be a lot more involvement in the groups.
Good old going across the board. Back in 1998, while this woman, my wife was broker in the law that had for this, and now they're trying to wholesale it.
And so you just have to learn to push it. It's like, because when you're in Louisiana, it's going to be one way, and this is
Yeah. So now we are, instead of wholesaling, we're taking all the property.
You just want access to MLS. Who wants access to MLS? That's good to have.
I'm looking for cash starting at because traveling out further.
I only down to Texas and, Georgia, but mainly in Harrisburg and Gulf. We're sticking with that. You know, I'm just not.
So guys, I believe that there are 2 seminars. Anytime you attend an event like this, it's going to be what's shared from the stage, and it's also going to be given by email. So as much as I want to make sure you're getting the questions I'm asking, I'm going to say there is a part tonight's component that will be missed because of not getting the people to your left and to your right that you know. But take some notes, it's going to be good.
Living there for a year, rented out, got a single family home, rented out the bedroom. But yeah, after dealing with that rent, guys, I don't know as much as I wanted to know. The landlording, yeah, that was a tough experience at first, especially with COVID coming, people not paying rent and whatnot. So I'm kind of doing a whole like rebuilding, trying to reestablish, get single one way to save up money.
All right, guys, make sure we're talking about your name, where you're from, and your experience in real estate, and then we'll have you turn around because we'll get going on the next topic. I just want to give you guys a brief introduction, everyone.
Real estate meetups, so I'd like to get to Justin Harris, I've been just on the computer.
You've been doing Harrisburg. You've been doing Harrisburg.
Started buying it.
Oh, okay. Hey, you got a car?
Right now in the process. You got a $20 bill, Rich, you gave the number on, I'll take it. $10 bill. No, you got a $10
Hi, my name is Mark. I live in Greenville. Yes, ma'am. I got a house. I'm listing a house right now.
Contractors, things like that, you know, I can always recommend.
My nephew is over here. He's got. Where are you at? He's on post. Realty. Over here. Yeah. My license.
Yeah.
So. That's where I'm at.
You have a direction on what you like?
It's really just
See how this comes from the
eventually
South
commercial,
I mainly operate,
it's
but I have a place in
that
we've
done a whole
So that's the whole people, we all done here? All right, you guys, on your last,
I got my first real estate in the 80s.
We'll start wrapping up here, and you can pick up on the next round and say your name. All right, you guys, so if you didn't finish everyone, I'm going to kind of go by majority, okay? If the majority of your group's done, you can always pick up. I promise I'm going to disappoint someone who's like, but I need to say this. All right, let me share a few things. Okay, so tonight I'm going to share around some common mistakes I've seen of people who own real estate, but they're not treating it like a business, right? So, this REIA, I started it in 2018, and it's been a phenomenal case study for me. And I recently counted, it's a few thousand people who've come through the doors. This is probably one of our smaller meetings, which I'm always good with intimate meetings, because especially in something like this, it's where the fun happens. So, but I've seen a few thousand investors and professionals come through, and I've seen a lot of people bright-eyed and bushy-tailed wanting to get into real estate, or I did my first deal, or I went out and bought 3 deals on a whim because I was so excited because I attended a weekend seminar, and then I've seen a significant number fizzle out. So there's been a lot that I've seen from here. Let me talk to you about what this is. These circles can often look like what we call a mastermind. In a mastermind, Napoleon Hill, in his book, Think and Grow Rich, talks about, where it's basically a coming together of the minds. I'll tell you this, there's always 2 seminars. There's the one that happens from up here, which is what's being shared, and then there's the one that you pick up from something like, man, this person said this and it really stuck with me. It finally clicked. Every time I attend seminars, it's what happens in the hotel lobby afterwards. That's that second seminar, right? Anyone know what I'm talking about? Okay. So this is why I wanted you to get into some groups. I'm going to talk about a topic, and then I'm going to give you a question to talk about in the group. Sound good? Okay. So a few things here. A lot of times when it comes to real estate as a business, a common mistake is they get frustrated because the money that they're making is not what they want to be making. For example, the cash flow of the rental property is not where they want to be because things keep breaking, or they keep turning over tenants, or this, that, or the other. A lot of times, let me say this, income is really just an outcome. It is an outcome of the work you put into the business, right? Revenue is a direct reflection of the sales, the different things that you're doing in the business. So let's talk about some of that. Sometimes some of you guys may say, hey, I am frustrated. My flipping company is not making the money that it can make because I keep having to change contractors and nothing's consistent. Maybe you're like, hey, as a wholesaler, I only do a deal every 3 months and it's not consistent. And so I'm going to challenge you tonight. Are you building a business or a hobby out of real estate? Because a lot of times we are looking for real estate, we're looking for business income, but we're giving the outcome that we're putting into it, like the work that we're putting into is a hobby level. Do I think that you can eventually scale things and automate things? And yes, we'll talk about that. So there's a level that I want to kind of pinpoint this. Success does leave clues. So there are people who are doing well at the business side of real estate, and those are the people that I often gravitate and try to get around. Because y'all, I struggle about this too, right? In my companies, I get frustrated too. I'm very much a visionary. I'm going to dream about all the different types of things I can get myself into, real estate wise. But it's the back house stuff that can get frustrating. And we're going to dive into this, but I'm going to say this. One of the hardest parts of the real estate business is what we're talking about tonight, which is why I think this is going to be one of the most critical conversations we can have all year. Because this is where the true money is actually not only made, but repeatedly made and then kept. Right? It's not about how much you make. And it's not about that one deal that you kind of fumble into and you kind of luck out, but you couldn't replicate it for the, to save your life. Does that make sense? Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just people, right? When it comes to businesses, you can't do it all, but some of you think you can. I know I did. If any of you guys ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki, he wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. I prefer his other book. It's called The Cash Flow Quadrant. Anyone here know what I'm talking about? All right, so the quadrant. So you've got employee, you've got self-employed, you've got business owner, you've got investor. I want to talk about this. Some of the things that I've seen that people fail. So we're going to talk about 4 different categories. We're going to talk about people, we're going to talk about paperwork, we're going to talk about properties, and we're going to talk about processes. So for the people part, these are things like partnerships, whether it's a family partnership, a spouse partnership in business, or just another partnership, vendors and employees, and then you as the owner or the solopreneur, things along those lines. So this is one of those things that I've seen go wrong, meaning you've got maybe multiple owners who own a property and they can't decide on some things, or people start off with this friend because we've had this wild idea in college to get into real estate, but then years down the road we realized we shouldn't have gotten business together. What were we doing? It was just this wild hair dream we had. So here's one of the things. Recently we actually did a class in here that was on the art of a joint venture deal. Partnerships are not something to kind of play around with, especially on the longer term deals. I'm talking the buy and holds, I'm talking things along those lines. Wholesale deals, those are very quick. There's not usually a lot of money involved, there's not usually a lot of time, effort, things like that. Those can be quick, one-off partnerships. Flips get a little bit more complicated. So, one of the things I want to bring up here is vendors and employees. So partnerships. Maybe one of the things is with partnerships is that people, it could benefit them to treat their real estate as a business, maybe because they say, hey, I need to evaluate some of the partnerships I have. For vendors and employees, when it comes to it, you're only as good as the help you can find, right? If you're a flipper, and if you're not doing the work yourself, but you're hiring it out to contractors, I can tell you right now, I am specifically looking for a contractor on the Gulf Coast. Specifically if they have, any type of experience working with mobile homes, because that mobile home park and the houses we got with it, the other things we bought a whole city block. I'm like, it ain't gonna fix itself. I need, and that's my first time in the market, right? Real estate is a team sport. That is so, I have never closed a deal that did not involve other people. Title companies, contractors, there's been times I've used real estate agents, I've used property management, I've used private money lenders or other lenders or whatever that looks like, right? So the question is, on your team, so these vendors or these employees, who is someone that you need right now on your team? Maybe you're like, hey, I really need a property manager. Maybe I really need this another lender because I'm hitting the wall when it comes to funding for my deals, right? I will tell you this. I recently I'm going to recommend a few books throughout tonight. I'm an avid reader. This book was recommended to me profusely, and it was so good that I read it twice as soon as I finished it. It's called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. Such an easy to read book, but I read it because I'm at a point right now where I'm scaling my companies, and my natural tendency is to figure out how to go do something. Well, Courtney doesn't need to know the how. Courtney needs to find a good who that already knows the how. Courtney sucks at technology. She doesn't need to figure out how to do a podcast. She needs to find a good how, a person who already knows the how, and I need that who, right? So that's a really good book. So maybe if you're like, hey, I'm at a point right now where I am at capacity. Maybe you're doing a few deals or you have a few deals in the pipeline, but you're like, I am at my wit's end. I could be doing more. Here is a key factor when I know that I am I need to hire is when I am losing money because I can't get to everything on my list. Anyone know that feeling? Okay, it's frustrating as heck. Last year I tallied it up for one of the missed opportunities, and it was 7 figures, and I was like, ugh. When you can tally that up, it is not a good day for yourself, right? So I'm gonna ask 2 questions, and then the last relationship is you yourself. In these mastermind groups, so tonight we're doing a micro version of it. I have paid significant money to be in higher level masterminds, to get with higher level CEOs in the real estate industry, because one of the biggest things I need as an entrepreneur is I need other people to help me get out of my own way. Maybe that is a mentor that tells me, Courtney, you're so stubborn-headed, stop doing this. I have a garage full of tools. I know how to do certain things. I now hit my hand and I'm saying, don't do it. You need to hire someone to do it. Because I can't manage 10 projects at one time if I'm doing all the renovations myself. And so many times, but that's where my goals are. So let me say this. A lot of what I'm going to say tonight is going to be subjective to your goals, right? Like, Courtney, I'm not trying to do 10 projects at a time. I'm just maybe wanting to own eventually 10 projects, 10 properties that are rentals. And so filter this through your goals, right? One of the biggest things I've seen when it comes to real estate as a business not going well for people is when they do everything themselves. One of the commercial properties we bought recently, the seller had to sell it at a loss because they did everything themselves, from swinging hammers to renting out the properties to whatever, collecting rent, all that stuff. But they lived 2.5 hours away from the property. And their spouse said, you got a choice to make. It's me or the property. Well, they made a good choice and sold the property, right? I've never seen a happier wife at the closing table. She was like, thank God, take this mess. Literally gave me all of their records, like, we don't even want this in our house. Like, the memory of it. So here's one of those things. As entrepreneurs, we can get that disease of trying to become the CEO, which is the chief everything officer. I am doing everything. I'm doing the accounting, I'm calling and doing sales, I'm calling and doing property management, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm swinging the hammers, when in reality, yes in the beginning, you've got to do that. But at a certain point, it is a way that it is an anchor that is holding you in place, and it's not a propeller that's taking you to where you need to go. So my 2 questions for you are, and this is going to depend, you can pick and choose which one you want to answer among the group. So I'm going to give you 2 different questions. Number 1, the question is, who is someone that you need on your team right now? Maybe it's an attorney, maybe it's a property manager. Who is someone that you need right now that you need help finding that person? Because I can tell you right now, when you don't have a good lender, the next deal is a struggle, right? Or when the property management part is an issue and you're right now a significant amount of behind rent because your property manager doesn't know how to access state rent credits right now or rental assistance right now, it's a struggle, right? So you're only as good as your team. So number 1, it's who is someone that you need like a referral for, and maybe you can talk around in the team. The second one is there something you are doing right now that you know you should be outsourcing to someone else, or a role that you need to hire for? This is for my CEOs, my chief everything officers. I know for me, some of you guys saw, I fired myself from accounting because it killed my momentum. Last year I had someone doing accounting for one of my larger companies, but my smaller companies, I was still doing the work. Y'all, I would just stare at that stuff on my kitchen table, which it took my kitchen table for like a few months, right? And it would stop my momentum, right? Because I would be like, I would have to get into the right headspace to do that. When I outsourced that to a professional who can do it, it helped free me up to stay in the lane of what I do well in the company. So that second question is, hey CEOs, what is something that you're doing right now that you know you need to outsource or hire someone. All right, so let's go ahead, and we do want to make sure we get through everything, so let's do our best to kind of only answer one, and we do want to kind of keep it brief, okay? So can I ask Bob in this group, Justin in this group, and Mike in that group, can you guys kind of make sure that we're facilitating, that things are kind of moving at a decent pace? So let's go ahead and talk through, pick which question you want to answer, and kind of talk through and go from there.
That's a very loaded question.
So, kind of like back where I started, where you DIY and everything, right? Just go around and look at everything that we bought. We DIY, we outsource the other
Sure.
pieces.
So like, I feel like for me, the subject, like the stuff that we do, someone that can just like do it, anytime I actually call, hey, it's taking this, like, oh, I need this, like, because I'm on trim, some ceiling or wall, some DocuSign, like, but he's on the side right now, I'm doing now, county property, so there's a lot of.
There was more than one person that I used to market. Because besides that, I still got no one to do
Have
that.
everything, so
So yeah, so right now, I think
I know several different people. Yeah, but just this year, refinance.
Yeah.
You know, most of my entrepreneurs, most of my clients is like, I gotta blow them all the other stuff. Now that I'm different actions, I gotta refinance. When I got a showing, I didn't have any.
I like to meet somebody like that and stuff.
So,
Or the road that way.
Like open seller or y'all?
No, I want to buy it.
So you're looking for rental properties?
Yeah, just for the foreseeable future, just scale wise, I'd like to stick with anything 4 or below, just to avoid like commercial loans and stick with residential. But I think you can get what, 10 residential loans in your name or something? Yeah, so I mean, assuming I hit that point, I mean, it would probably be time to start scaling anyway. I wouldn't be opposed to property management myself, but yeah.
Okay, well, for me, I'm still in the learning process, so hire somebody else to
Yeah, well, that's what this past year doing the duplex that I have, managing myself, has definitely taught me a lot about like repair costs and how to deal with like insurance and screening tenants and stuff like that. Where if I do eventually want to hire a property manager, I kind of know some of the questions to ask.
What's where you live and want to.
Justin, have you tied into Northshore REIA and where your property is in Florida?
Clearing the land and then.
So you buy a duplex and you have a room that you have and then what?
So it's like,
It's not gonna work.
yeah, just
So,
duplex,
we gotta
I
stop.
would live in one side, just rent it out there. They just say it's a good way to get started.
But one thing's.
In the grand scheme of things, it's actually back to the group. We've sold out a house that could chance tons of decisions. But obviously,
After five, just
Get the right food in place, they can kind of point you to the what.
Exactly.
experience around it, so he can maybe tell us some things that might cost me financially that I just don't foresee. Some kind of speed bumps that we never run across with city and state. Not somebody to hold hand, but just maybe once a month, if I have something, I have somebody that I have, I don't have that right.
That's what I kind of get.
We're done, we're in laundry. Cousin Mike,
Contracts right now working for rent.
Good stuff.
I currently don't have like proof
Well,
of
feel free
income.
if somebody knows
if
what
that's
answer that
easier
second
to
question, you're welcome to
get
get out and
whatever,
I'll
so
be,
I'm just kind of trying to work with that.
the second, so the first one
Is
was,
that I was qualified for a loan besides that?
I know there are some questions, but the second one is there something you're doing that
marketing,
needs,
like driving around the
you need to outsource?
Because right now.
That was the first thing that I was like, even though I have one of those spray machines in my garage, I hate painting. It's just one of those things like, I love painting
right
my
now,
garage,
we're
but it's
working
one
on
room at a
town
time, we get it done on the weekends. It's gonna take me at least 6 weekends to paint the bottom, and I'm starting the exterior first. So I was like, thank you, Jesus, the minute that I was like,
And then we just hired someone yesterday, and she's a housewife, she graduated from Southeastern.
yeah, about 2 to 3 more minutes, you guys, I'm gonna start wrapping up.
She's just tired.
What specifically are you trying to do?
Yeah.
Okay, so, I told you, I mean, this whole wholesale thing, we got a problem. They've been 5 and 10 college town, here town, all that. That's not easy.
That's my thing when I
It's
go to
just,
school.
my goal is to find new hires,
You know, like
middle
when you
class.
trust.
And
It takes time. It takes a lot of time.
we have a problem getting closing, the,
I know,
get
I
it
started
out.
out right before the crash.
Wholesale,
I got my
different price.
I think I'm just looking
I did some
Contract.
contract, a bunch of really big stuff.
Yeah.
So
So we're just.
also.
Where you looking at someone facing in Hattiesburg or over here?
It has, but we have to get it from this one. I hired you,
Because
I'm not
my
gonna
only,
drive a dollar, so next time we get
very high was,
But then I realized
I've
the
done a
CPA
lot
stuff working
of
with
work that way, but I'm not yet.
Like, you see green seller financing, or
No, like if I'm gonna buy,
you're gonna buy.
offer,
Yeah.
offer to buy.
But you're gonna bang it.
I don't want to use it, I don't want to use contract that's obscurity.
Don't do market research.
So,
You do what?
Hopefully.
Because that's more seller friendly.
Right.
Or you might wanna do like a one-side subject to, like there's a promotional credit sale on the or something.
We're gonna start winding down, you guys.
The houses that you were trying to find buyers for,
Yeah.
so you have the page set up and all? Okay.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and whoever's the last person, let's go ahead and wrap them up. And then if you need to, you can pick back up. I'm gonna do my best to kind of keep moving us along, even though again, I know I'm gonna disappoint some people. First thing I wanted to say is, if you're new, if you're still looking to do your first deal, I'm trying to build a foundation for you here to show you this is truly one of the hardest parts, which is the business side of it, right? And so think about and plan for where you'll start and kind of speak from that place. So the next thing, so when it comes down to people, you guys, hands down, I have been able to go farther. I've grown farther, and I've been able to go farther when I've partnered up, when I've worked alongside people, or I've brought on mentors, or I've done X, Y, Z. People have been a multiplier for my business, so it's a really key factor. So the next thing we talk about is paperwork, which I know this is not sexy. But here's the thing is the paperwork. I'm talking entities, I'm talking accounting, I'm talking insurance, I'm talking operating agreements, all those things. That paperwork, it really makes the paper, the money, it really makes it work. The paperwork makes the paper work, right? It's a cliche thing to say kind of, but the reality is true. Why? Because I'll tell you this, and this kind of points to the people part, but on the paperwork side, especially on commercial deals, when lenders are looking at you, they're looking at what is your track record of handling some of those daily operations of paperwork, right? They're looking to say, hey, how do you handle the organization of the things that make the business safe, right? The entities and things like that, right? the insurance, all of that. If, you know, a lender looks at you, but, you know, you're struggling with, you know, keeping insurance on your properties, or you're this, that, and the other. When it comes, one thing I've learned from commercial real estate is that you're only as strong as your ability to manage stuff, right? And this paperwork is a part of it. I will be the first to admit, I stink at this stuff. I overcomplicate things, and then when I don't overcomplicate them, I just don't get with them. Or they get put on a list, and I'm forever not getting through that list, right? It's like, well, one day, like literally last year I got a will in an estate planned out, but it's been on the list for like 6 years. I'm like, good thing I didn't perish before. Like we would have been up a creek, the dog wouldn't have gotten anything. So here's the thing is, entrepreneurs are historically, they struggle with this. Again, I'm going to point to the who. You might say, you know what, I need to force feed myself some of this, but here's the thing is, just because it's not natural for you to do the paperwork stuff, doesn't mean that your business doesn't need it to thrive. So one thing I've had to learn to do is, I've got to make sure it happens so that the business is protected, the business can survive and win. So, one of the things I want to talk about is accounting. And you're like, oh gosh, Courtney. Yes, this is the receipts. This is the tax planning side. I'm going to say this. I have had a bad habit of, at the end of the year, figuring out where the company fell, the numbers fell. But that is not a good way to operate, because you need to be able to say, where is the company now? Are we profitable? Do we need to up our revenue? Do we need to get really tight on our expenses? Accounting is one of those things where you need to know on an ongoing basis where you stand, so that you can make adjustments. You cannot, it's more difficult, Bob being the CPA and the accountant, it's more difficult to course correct anything that's in the past, right? It's something that you want to be able to course correct in the moment. It is super hard. That is one of those things, again, the poor kitchen table with the shoebox full of receipts. It's hard, but it is one of those things, for the lifeblood of your company, you need to know if all that busy work you're putting in is making you profitable enough, right? I have often seen when I ask them questions about their real estate business, they can't tell me if their company is profitable. They can't tell me certain metrics about their company. One of the first things we did when COVID hit was we got really tight on our expenses, meaning we leaned out. When's the last time that you printed out, whether it's your bank statement or your credit card statement, and you went line by line and be like, man, am I using that subscription? Man, when's the last time I used that? But I'm paying for it for your business, but also personally, right? So a really great book when it comes to the accounting part is Profit First. What's Mike's last name?
McAllowitz or something like that.
Yeah, I'm always like Mike Wachowski from the movie Monsters Inc., but I know that's not his last name. But that's always what comes to mind. And then so here's the other thing: are you keeping your expenses separate from your personal? Are you organized when it comes to things like that? Bob, talk to me about this. If someone has an LLC, but they're not keeping the money separate, does it still help them?
No, the purpose of the LLC is limited liability protection.
It's
So
to
if you're-
protect you from if something goes wrong.
Right, something goes wrong. So if you own a rental property, for instance, someone slips and falls, you don't want them to be able to go after any of your other properties or your personal residence or anything like that. But if you have an LLC with a rental property in it, but you're not treating it as separate from yourself, which means you're paying your grocery bills, your gas bills, or whatever out of your LLC that are non-business related expenses, then the attorney who's representing the person who slipped and fall is gonna find that out in discovery, and then they're going to request the judge allow them to go right through the LLC to you. So you got to keep everything separate, and the more that you keep track of that and or set up things to make it harder for you to mix them up. So you have a bank account set up for the LLC. You make sure that if you're buying something for the business, you're paying for it with the debit card from your LLC. You know, if every once in a while, which happens to me sometimes, it's like I'll fill out the wrong debit card and pay for something, and then of course my wife points it out to me immediately because she sees me spend it online. She's watching me every time I go. But I just transfer money back to the company at that point and reimburse it. And just, you know, it's like as long as you're making these corrections and you're doing that, you're going to be okay. But for the most part, you try to keep it as separate as possible. And
okay, so what's, you know, so it's one of those things. We'll talk here quickly about LLCs, but the reality is so many of us know to get an LLC, but then we don't do this second part, right? So there's some things that I've done to on the accounting side is, so LLCs, we'll talk about that here. And then I want to bring it back to the accounting part because again, the paperwork and the things that you do business-wise will help make the money that you're making work, right? So that you can keep it and you can protect it. So, one of the things is everyone knows, hey, you know, you eventually want to get a business, you want to get an LLC. And one of the things is when I got started, I went and got an LLC. Fun fact, I think within 30 days I changed the name, legally changed the name of the company because it sounded too much like I was a realtor and I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do. But then again, I was so frustrated because I went through 20 names. I thought I had the perfect name and then it took me 20 names to get to where I wanted to eventually, because everything else was taken. I'm like, seriously? I had to start, I think I literally, a lot of you guys know my company, say Deep Roots something. Deep Roots Investments was my first company. Technically it was Deep Roots Realty. And I was like, that doesn't really get across the investment side of thing, right? Anyway, so I changed it. I started off with that, right? One of the pieces of advice my mentor when I first got started gave me was, because I was like, do I do it through Wyoming? Do I do it like Nevada? Do I like all this stuff? And he was like, Courtney. So one of my mentors, he was a acquisitions manager for BP Oil, and he had just retired, and I had the privilege of having him when I was a property manager as one of my tenants. He would just shoot the breeze with me in my office all the time. Fun fact, the company that I managed, we made an offer together eventually, but we just for a few years talked back and forth, and he saw me get in my head about creating an LLC. He said, Courtney, what do you have to protect? Asset-wise, I was 25. I was wanting to get buy my first property. So when it comes to LLCs, understand there is a level that, you do want to set things up right, but if you don't have anything for an attorney to go after, don't get stuck. Here's Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, is one of my mentors. He'll never know my name. He's since, passed away, but Jim Rohn said, in essence, to not major in the minors, right? A minor can be something like an asset protection company when you don't have any assets. When what you really need a major in is, getting a property under contract, and then you go create an LLC, right? Once there's actually some rubber hitting the road, okay? Or maybe we're getting so stuck in creating a logo, but the company's actually not making any money. Who cares what the company name is, right? Anyone else get stuck on business card creation, things like that, right? We're just so excited to get moving along. So here's the thing is, we're creating LLCs, but when I got started, I created one, and then I put my head down and I started getting to work. But the next thing I know, I'm starting to do, I'm holding some rentals, I'm flipping, I'm wholesaling, all in one company. And then it took me about 5-6 days until I found one that said, you probably shouldn't do that. Because at that point, I had gotten traction, right? And I'm doing different strategies. He's like, no. So now if you saw, it's like a whole web, it's this whole thing with all the different companies, and I literally have to draw it out. Hey, my man, join in one of the circles. Actually, let's get you over here in this one. So now it's to the point that the accountants need the web because they don't know, they're like so confused. But the reality is that I did not need that day one, right? I've needed it now over time. And I'll say this, whenever you create an LLC, you can then go through the IRS and get an EIN number. And this EIN number is an important number because it's like a social security number for the business. And so that is what I use for just about every time that I can, I use that. Bob likes to say, when you have an EIN number, you no longer have to give out your social security number when you're doing business, right? And so here's something important. When you create a company, Say for example, you're buying a rental property and you're gonna put it, so you create an LLC through Secretary of State, and you get that EIN number, you can actually go and open up a business account. Now what I did was I had 7 different, I was like, I'm gonna be strategic, I'm gonna build relationships with all these community banks, and I had 7 different banks that I had accounts with over the years. I'm now down to like, I don't know, 3 or 4. But like, I've had to reduce it, because I was like, that is just way too many places to go to. But the reality is now I have pretty much two main parent companies, and I have 2 major banks, not major banks, but 2 main banks that I have the different companies at. So it makes it, it's not like I have all the different companies everywhere, but I can go in and I can knock out a handful of things there, right? But here's the thing is, they know me, they're getting to know me, I'm getting to know them. All right, so we've got LLCs. Something that's really important is, if you've got a partner, there's something called an operating agreement. If you have an LLC, you should have one of those. But a lot of times when it's just you, that can be something that's pretty simple. But I'm telling you, if you're partnering with someone, you should have an operating agreement, which is, especially in the beginning when you're getting into that partnership, you want to plan the divorce before the honeymoon.